it just takes a slight moment just for it to actually get started up.
Yeah, it's super weird.
It takes a minute.
Yeah. Let me just check again. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now. Okay, looks like we are live then. Okay. Awesome. Welcome everyone to the 4th episode of Sonic Lore with Radar. And this is a very fun one we're going to be discussing today. And of course I have my co-host here, Angie, for this episode of Sonic Lore with Radar.
First stream of 2024. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. And of course we have the amazing Radar himself.
Hello, everybody.
And as you know, I want to say Happy New Year to everyone, to welcome
Woo!
2024. And as Angie said, this is the very first live stream on my YouTube channel for 2024. Woo!
Yippee!
Welcome to the future, everybody. Let's hope we survive this one too.
And of course, the topic of discussion for this episode is the Sonic IDW Modern. So pretty much the only issue we are not allowing is the recent issue, as Radar has told me about, which is I believe issue 68, you said, Radar, that came out
Yes,
just
issue
today.
68 just released today, so we won't be discussing that on behalf of spoilers for anyone who is planning on reading it. However, every other issue from the series so far is for fair game.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm just curious, where do you guys want to start with IDW? And
We might as well
IDW.
start with the beginning, shall we? But before we do that, I do want to give my little recap as I do at the beginning of these streams. Leah, if I may?
Oh yes, of the rules. I'm presuming you want me to read the rules again.
Yes, the rules, and then I will, explain exactly what it is I'm streaming here. So please share the rules, and then I will do my thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I just need to find it. Been a while.
Ah,
um. Do. Okay, let me go. Aha! I have found it. All right, so we do have rules for the audience here. It has been a month, so rule number one for audience is please be respectful towards others in the live stream chat and do not cause any fights. Rule two, please keep the lore questions to what we are discussing, which of course, we are going to be discussing Sonic IDW Modern. So please keep the lore questions to IDW Modern. Rule number three, please do not ask lore questions that will go into spoiler territory. As we have mentioned, issue 68 just came out today, so please do not ask questions about issue 68. Um, of course, rule number four is when it comes to Sonic Prime lore, that will be later on, as recently, actually, the third part is actually coming out next week. So please do not ask anything about Sonic Prime. Remember, we're keeping it to IDW Modern. So, rule number five, please do not ask any inappropriate questions in the live stream chat, as we are discussing Sonic lore. So please keep the questions why the PG questions. And rule number six for audience, please do not swear in the chat, as my content is kid friendly and we do want to keep this content kid friendly. Um, all right, Radar.
I shall be doing my thing then.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, as you guys see, the stream is showing a wonderful a wonderful document that that I have currently created for over the past 3 years, and it's going to be 4 come April. Oh my gosh. I keep saying I wasted my life, but clearly something went wrong. um, so
something
this whole
changed.
thing I have is an entire document dedicated to the main Sonic canon. this is everything that is tied to the first Sonic the Hedgehog game and all of the story that came with it afterwards. If you do want to see the streams that we have for the classic games, the classic IDW comics, the Dreamcast era games, and the modern games, there is a playlist on Leah's channel of these of the past 3 episodes that you can go and check out for yourself. However, our stream today will be of the IDW comics, specifically the main book. Ah.
Let's see. How
Oh,
many of you
God.
kids are ready to learn about IDW today?
Yeah,
Let's
so
find
if
out.
you guys do not know, the IDW Sonic comics, they are obviously created in part with IDW Publishing. They were picked up around the time of the Archie comics losing the rights to Sonic, obviously, um, and yeah, 2016, the Archie comics were unfortunately canceled, and a lot of those storylines were halted. Um, there were some side projects, of course, with the release of Sonic Mania and Sonic Forces. As we all know about the Sonic Forces prequel comics that came from Ian Flynn and Adam Bryce Thomas, but those comics are not under Archie, and they're not under anything else. They are simply just Sega published comics, because, well, didn't know if anything from Archie was going to be coming back. So, you know, uh, just trying to find the right words, of course. However, come later in the future, they announced that Sega was partnering with IDW for a new comic series for Sonic the Hedgehog, and 2018 we get this, uh, the first time of a new Sonic comic after more than 25 years with Archie. Honestly, like, who would have thought that a comic of Sonic, like any video game comic, would have lasted that long? And who would have known if IDW was ever going to, like, you know, find its footing and possibly even surpass that? It even seems possible today after only 5 years of the comic being around. 6 come 2024, as far as I'm aware. So, but the comic has been making a lot of great strides, especially with the starting arc, which, with a new comic, we have a new storyline. We have this whole new thing going on that, again, Archie, the Archie storylines that were from the reboot and, of course, the pre-reboot have been halted. Those characters and all of that world building, it seems as if we were never going to see it again. So, of course, Ian Flynn having to come back, and with Tracy Yardley as well, who has done a bunch of works for Archie comics. In fact, when Ian Flynn first started on Archie, Tracy Yardley also started too. And they both came back to start issue 1 and kick off that train from there. So what is exactly IDW Sonic? These storylines take place after the events of Sonic Forces. Obviously, it was Ian's intention, where Sonic Forces was the latest game at the time, and it was obviously that old fans were coming back to play the game, despite how the game came out, in a sense. But there were also new fans coming in from Forces. So obviously it was it was Ian's idea to start the new comic straight from there. So after the events of Forces, we pick up 1 month afterwards. Sonic is currently running about, checking in on random badnik attacks, because ever since Eggman disappeared after the Mega Death Egg robot fight, the badniks were left without anyone to lead them. So they were just aimlessly wandering about. So then we come across Sonic entering the town of Vista View, where he would eventually find an ambush of egg hammers, which are badniks from Sonic Heroes. And Tails would come in to save him, just before he gets slammed by the egg hammers. And the two would do their thing as they do. Sonic and Tails, the best buds forever, of course, and they would take out the Badniks in record time. Um, However, as Sonic and Tails were reminiscing and such about past events and, of course, the end of the Eggman War, Sonic was going to get out there and figure out exactly what's going on because Tails points out that that the Badniks are becoming more they're becoming more coordinated in their attacks. Like, again, the egg hammers were new to the mix, at least according to Sonic. And despite Tails being a little bit worried of Sonic going off on his own again, Sonic was reassuring Tails that he'll be okay. Tails decides to stay behind at Vista View to help the townspeople. Sonic would run off to another adventure. But, of course, there seems to be something underlying with the whole story, as a Flapper Badnik is keeping an eye on Sonic, and it turns out some mysterious person has eyes out for it. Supposedly an Eggman base, possibly Eggman. And, of course, apparently, supposedly Eggman, whoever it might be there, is wanting to be able to strike on Sonic and the Resistance. So, their next target, Amy Rose, over in the next town over. And it was ever since that fateful day in issue 1 that we would get a lot more content after that. And it would become something else. Truly. I was just giving that small little recap of issue 1 just because I felt like it was like, oh, I feel like this needs it. Like, oh, hey, we should tell like, oh, Sonic and Tails' little story at the beginning, and then onward it goes. It's just it just takes off from there, and it's pretty amazing. So, now that I've recapped that little introduction to the IDW Sonic, obviously I can't recap for every issue. However, I do think that, gosh, I'm just trying to find the right words. Like, this is really exciting and everything. So obviously there will obviously with IDW Sonic there are like super fans out there who've read all the comics. There are people who are still like coming in to figure out like what are the IDW comics exactly for Sonic. And like, I guess I should probably put this out of the way. How are they canon? Because obviously after yes. So if you guys have no idea, the IDW Sonic comics are canon in the sense that they are in the same universe as the video games. The Sonic you see in these comics is the same Sonic from the games, same Sonic you see from Forces, Colors, Lost World, even Frontiers as of recently. They are both the same Sonic. And like, this is the same world, this is the same, these are your same characters and everything. With IDW being presented as a new comic, again, it built off of Sonic Forces, as Ian's intention was. However, unlike Archie, IDW Sonic is more in line with the games, in the sense that it doesn't feel like a different world or a different it doesn't feel like it's trying to be its own thing. The IDW comics are, they're true to Sonic in the video games from Sega of Japan. Whether that be from the classic stories being like, reminiscent of Sonic Mania. You have these comics being reminiscent of Forces and all the other games that come before it. And how exactly are they canon? Well, around the time of Sonic Frontiers when it was coming out, excuse me, sorry, my throat. Takashi Iizuka, who is, if you guys don't know, Takashi Iizuka, he has been part of Sega of Japan for the longest time, and as of right now, he is currently working as the Sonic creative officer. He was a game designer, he's a director, supervisor, producer, everything. Like he's like pretty much like he's the key director of within Sonic Team. He's been working on things ever since Sonic 3 and Knuckles. He Izuka-san wanted to have a lot of the Sonic media like part of the same universe as if they were, um yeah, pretty much a unification between the video games and the external media of Sonic. And that would come in forth of making the IDW comics part of the games universe, as well as tying in Sonic Prime, the Netflix TV show. That was Izuka's decision, and as well as the other higher-ups from Sega of Japan. So now, I believe it was ever since... Yes, I believe it's like about a month after Frontiers came out, where things like started to actually like come into play, where Ian Flynn was confirming the fact that IDW is canon, as well as Frontiers showing Sonic mentioning Tangle in a game, which is pretty amazing. In Frontiers, when Sonic is running around Kronos Island, on the Starfall Islands, he mentions Tangle, saying how, I bet she would love to climb around these ruins. And from there, like that was pretty much the start of an ongoing trend of the IDW comics like connecting itself to the games world. It would tie itself over to Tales Tube even, which was prominent before Frontiers came out. Even Tangle has a little cameo in that as well. So a lot of all of these stories that were like, they were like similar to the games, they are, because they are part of the games universe. And they are still going with the fact that the IDW comics are canon. Again, more evident with Tales 2, Frontiers, some few games like Sonic Dream Team that came out not too long ago. It doesn't have as many it doesn't really have references to IDW, but it's still pretty much the same. It's still pretty much the same universe overall. Same thing goes for Superstars, where it doesn't really reference the classic comics, but still the same world nonetheless. So just putting that out there, that's pretty much how the IDW comics are canon to the games, and that's the reason why we're doing this stream.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that isn't as long as that was supposed to go on for, but I think we can simply move on. Totally okay. We can rightfully go on to our questions now. But first, Leah, Angie, if you have a question for me, please ask. I'll be here to answer it and such.
Let's see. Trying to remember my IDW modern is a little bit it is a little bit behind, but I'm very curious. Have I don't know if they ever explained it how Eggman got like amnesia, when he disappeared. I don't know. Did they ever explain that or no?
So obviously we're going into a little bit more into IDW now, thanks to Leah's question. So how did Eggman got amnesia? So if you guys don't know, in IDW around the time of issue 5 and 6, supposedly we got the fate of Dr. Eggman. After the events of Forces, we find out exactly what happened to him. So in issue 5, Sonic is being led by Espio over to a mountainside featuring a little community known as Windmill Village. It is with this that supposedly the Chaotix have sorta found Eggman, and it is with this that Sonic comes over to the village, and he finds Charmy and Vector there, where they introduce Sonic to someone new. It is a man named Mr. Tinker, and supposedly he he looks a lot like Eggman. He is Eggman. Mr. Tinker is Eggman with amnesia. Supposedly, after the events of Forces, after Sonic, the Avatar, and Classic Sonic uh, destroyed the Mega Death Egg robot, Eggman landed in Windmill Village unconscious, and it seemed as like he didn't remember a single thing. He he didn't know who Sonic he didn't know who Sonic was. He didn't know how he got there in the village. He just showed up there. However, he was being awfully nice to the people of Windmill Village, including the head of the village, Elder Scruffy, to the point where the village took him in, and he became the local inventor and engineer around the village. Um, he would fix things for the village people. He fixed like the smallest of things, the biggest of things, and above all else, he was awfully kind to the people of Windmill Village, just so as much as they were kind to him. Sonic wasn't exactly he had his doubts, obviously, in the Chaotix too. Well, half, anyways. Sonic and SBO knew better. Charmy and Vector, however, were skeptical about it, and it kind of just gone off to a little debate on how like did should they leave Mr. Tinker here? Should they take him in? Should they destroy him because he still is Eggman? Should they not do anything because he doesn't remember all the bad he's done? It kind of got confusing to the point where all it took was one little badnik attack on the village, and that cemented things for Sonic. Mr. Tinker wasn't Eggman anymore, and Sonic was pretty much content with the fact that he would have left Mr. Tinker at Windmill Village because, again, he doesn't remember his time as Eggman, so what harm could he have done if he was doing all the good there at the village? Now, that was just a little recap on who Mr. Tinker was exactly. In terms of your question on how he got amnesia, in issue 5, when Elder Scruffy retells the story of how he got there to the village, to Sonic and the Chaotix, in the artwork, in the interior artwork of the comic, you can see little phantom cubes reminiscent of Infinite's power hovering over Eggman as the village people found him. As far as I'm aware, that is the only clue we have as to how he got amnesia. After the Mega Death Egg robot was officially destroyed and, well, it exploded, it seems that the Phantom Ruby caused something to happen to Eggman. And after the Death Egg robot exploded and Eggman blasted off, supposedly the Phantom Ruby did something to his mind, and again, yeah, that's all we have to go off of. It's possibly the Phantom Ruby that messed with his brain. That final battle between him and Sonic, Classic Sonic, and the Avatar. There doesn't seem to be any other explanation aside from the Phantom Ruby, and yeah, I mean, to be fair, that would make sense. The Phantom Ruby has done some screwy things to Sonic's world, so why not mess with the man who used it in the first place? Makes so much sense to me.
Why not?
Interesting.
Angie, do you happen to have any questions?
No.
No. All right. I was just simply asking, just in case. Right. Let's see here. Let's see if we have any questions from the chat. Remember, chat, if you have any questions in regards to IDW Sonic, please ask. I'm more than happy to answer any of your burning questions. See, Rainboom's here. Hold on, let me see. Am I saying this right? Omegas? Omega817. I hope I'm saying that right. Hello, and Ryan the Tenrec. Hello. Right, we have some people. Again, any questions you have to IDW, please ask. See. Who's if IDW and Sega would bring Infinite, would Infinite feel the same way like he did, like Eggman did? Okay, so that's actually an interesting thing that we can talk about because again, IDW is tied to forces. But it's a weird thing. Yes, I can't. If IDW and Sega would bring Infinite, I'm assuming back, would Infinite feel the same way like Eggman did? Okay, so first things first. No, Infinite would not. Yeah, yeah. Let's yeah. Infinite would not have amnesia like Eggman did. You see, what happened to Infinite in Forces was that after his final battle with Sonic and the Avatar at Eggman Empire Fortress, um he and his Phantom Ruby would be absorbed by the original Phantom Ruby. Yeah, I should make this very clear. The Phantom Ruby that's on Infinite's chest is not the original. That is the finalized version of the prototypes Eggman made. That is a Phantom Ruby prototype and the finalized version that Infinite used for his power. The original Phantom Ruby from Mania, Eggman still had it, and he had it on reserve for, as his trump card as he told Tails. The original Phantom Ruby absorbed Infinite. I don't know what else to say aside from that. Like, he got absorbed into the original Phantom Ruby. However, some good did come from it, but it's still weird nonetheless. Okay, number 2, Infinite is back. Infinite did come back. Sega did bring him back, but not in IDW. You see, at the time of IDW, when the Neo Metal Sonic arc was pretty much finishing, Ian has gone on to say that Infinite was not allowed to be used in IDW. Neither was the Jackal Squad. Well, like it was a lot of back and forth between Ian and IDW and Sega and stuff, but Infinite could not be used in the comics. However, Infinite did come back as of last year in 2023, in the Isekai Ogiri stories by Sega of Japan, or translated to Otherworld Comedy, where Sega of Japan and one of the Sonic Channel writers, Itaro Toyota, a great man, by the way. You should really check out the Sonic Channel stories that he wrote. He created the set of stories for Sonic Channel in 2023, where Eggman used one last Phantom Ruby prototype that he forgot to discard during the events of Forces, and he would try to reshape the world again into his vision. However, things don't go right, and it causes the Earth to get covered in some sort of like a magic film sort of thing. Like, think of it as like a shield, like hovering over the Earth, essentially, where people and places would be like thrown about into different scenarios, like Shadow and Infinite in a rock band, or Tikal and Chaos working at a pizza place that they own, or Amy's a fortune teller for Blaze, who is this magical princess and such. And it's like, honestly, you should probably check out the stories for yourself. But Infinite does come back in those stories, and we do get some sort of resolution to him in Forces, and possibly an ambiguous ending to if we're going to see him again in the future. So yeah, and so yeah. To recap, Infinite did come back, but not in IDW. But his reappearance in those stories by Sega of Japan are still important to his character. No, he would not be affected by the Phantom Ruby like Eggman did, because he was already absorbed by the Phantom Ruby to begin with. But at least the good news is with Infinite is that he doesn't have the prototype on his chest anymore. So
Mm.
that's a good thing there. Infinite doesn't have a Phantom Ruby strapped to his chest anymore. He's pretty much free from that. Oh, so I hope that answers your question there. Oh, it seems we have another one. Oh, call me Omega or Os. Or Os, as my nickname is. Okay. Okay, cool. I'll just call you Omega. That's fine. We have another question from Omega. I'll answer that one. Do you think Sage would look at the old Eggman's files about the Phantom Ruby? I
Ooh.
don't. I don't know about that. I mean, obviously, Sage does automatically know everything when it comes to Eggman's past ventures. In Frontiers, she, references, the events of Heroes and Sonic Adventure 2. Like, she knows things about what Eggman's done in order to take over the world. About the Phantom Ruby, I have no doubt that she'd know about the events of Forces. However, that depends on if that will be reflected in IDW.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going to get this little thing out of the way. So, IDW overall, IDW Sonic, is currently in the timeline position of taking place after Forces. That's where the comic starts, is 1 month after Forces. However, the comic has not progressed since that timeline period. Like, the comic is still after the events of Forces. It hasn't moved on to anything else, despite the fact that we have, like, new games coming out.
Aha.
I will say this, is that Ian Flynn and Evan Stanley have gone on to confirm that the comic will eventually move to after Frontiers. The comic in the future, whenever that will be, will no longer be tied to being after the events of Forces. It will move on to the events. It will move on to after the events of Frontiers. Ian has also gone on to say that whenever we see Sage in the comic, that's when we've made the jump. But it's only a matter of time, really. Right. Let's see. I see some more questions, but I'm gonna hold them off there. You can keep sending in your questions, by the way. I just wanna see if Leah or Angie still have questions of their own they want to ask.
Mm. Ooh. Okay. I think I have been very curious about how did I guess Metal Sonic reawaken? You could say. Like, was it like an automatic? You know how like I think Silver and Sonic go into one of Eggman's bases to find out. I believe if my memory serves me correct, and then it kind of shows that it's like his Neo Metal form, and I'm like, how did he
Ah,
how did he I guess turn on or I guess reawaken, I guess?
yes. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. So what Leah is currently asking me is exactly like what Silver and Sonic were doing at one of Eggman's pyramid bases at Green Hill. So, that ties into issue 7, the issue before Sonic and Silver's in issue 8. Sonic was merely because at that point Sonic had already knew what Eggman was doing. He was Mr. Tinker. He was just living his life happily, and after a confrontation with Shadow and Rouge, they settled on the fact that they'd leave Mr. Tinker at Windmill Village and no harm would possibly come from it. So the Chaotix and Sonic would still find out who exactly is orchestrating the Badnik attacks. So in issue 7, Sonic and Tails would hop on the tornado and see where they go next, only to find out the Egg Fleet has started to rise up into the sky. That means something's happening. So Sonic would go into one of the Egg Fleet ships that were right behind Tails in the tornado. From there, he'd go on to use the Miles Electric in order to gather information from one of the computer terminals. However, upon entering about upon entering the ship, Sonic would come across Eggman? Why is Eggman here? Mr. Tinker was left behind at Windmill Village. I don't understand. what could this mean? Sonic is able to pretty much put two and two together, and obviously it's a fake disguised as Eggman. However, what Sonic did not realize is that it would be Metal Sonic. No, Neo Metal Sonic. See, Neo Metal Sonic. Oh goodness. So this actually ties into Forces as well, because the real Metal Sonic was not present during the events of Forces. It was a phantom copy created by Infinite. The real Metal Sonic was being upgraded to Neo at Metropolis from Forces. However, as soon as Neo Metal Sonic could be upgraded to his full form, the Eggman War was already lost to the Eggman Empire, and the Resistance won. Sonic had ruined everything once again, and Metropolis was in a hulking state of disarray as soon as Neo Metal Sonic awoken. So it is with that Neo Metal Sonic had taken Eggman's biodata, and he would go on to try and find the original Eggman. He would disguise himself as Eggman in order to make sure that the Eggman Empire's rule was not left unchanged. He would disguise himself as Eggman, take over the world for Eggman as Eggman. So basically, to answer your question, Leah, Metal Sonic awoken from Metropolis in Forces. He was upgraded to Neo Metal Sonic in order to win the final battle for the Eggman Empire, but he was upgraded too late. And following that, again, like I said, he would disguise himself as Eggman with his biodata, and he'd take over the Empire as Eggman to make sure that nothing was unchanged after the events of Forces. And it is with that he had the Egg Fleet mobilized, so that way he would be able to not only, search for where the real Eggman is, but to also deal with another plan Neo Metal Sonic has in mind that Sonic does not know. But you can find that out in issue 7 of IDW. Angie, do you have a question yet? Nothing yet? Are you sure?
No, still trying to think of them.
Alrighty then. Then I will simply hop back into the questions with the live stream chat, and then we can go on to one of my fun facts. Because that's what I like to do in these streams, where I like to share one of my infamous fun facts about certain Sonic media. Right, let's see here. Rainboom, you have yourself a question. So Radar, how the IDW team did introduce the new characters into IDW Modern? Right, because we have a whole slew of new characters that came with these comics. So, with the introduction of the new comic series, obviously we'd have new comic original faces show up. Such as issue 4 of IDW would introduce the absolutely rambunctious and legendary Tango the Lemur of Spiral Hill Village. Or for instance, in issue 8, alongside Silver's debut in IDW Sonic, we'd have the silent sniper Whisper the Wolf. Two very, very famous characters in the IDW comics for more reasons than one, to say the least. If you know, you know. You can't tell, but I'm winking. But we'd also have our villain characters, such as in issue 3 of IDW, we'd get introduced to the bumbling brothers Rough and Tumble the Skunks. Oh, their catchphrases sure are catchy. Or during the events of the Neo Metal Sonic arc, during the Battle for Angel Island in issue 11, we'd get introduced to shadowy scientist Dr. Starline, who put Eggman back on the evil path by simply stealing Mr. Tinker from his home of Windmill Village and changing him back with a little help from Metal Sonic. Now, for the question Rainboom has asked, how does IDW bring in these new characters? there is a lot of backstory when it comes to the characters, such as the fact that, for example, Starline was created off of a reference to a glitch that comes from Knuckles Chaotix, where um, it is this thing known as Weknia. I believe that's how I'm pronouncing it, Weknia, or simply just known as the Line of Stars. It is a glitched character of Knuckles where he becomes recolored and he looks a little bit like he looks a little bit like a bomb from Knuckles Chaotix. He becomes like silver and white, and he has red gloves, and his eyes are red, and he has a little bit of yellow, and it's like pretty weird. Um, apparently it's from leftover data of Tails, because if you guys don't know, Knuckles Chaotix is the remain like Knuckles Chaotix was previously a beta title known as Sonic Crackers, where it would be Sonic and Tails playable with the bound ring system, as Knuckles and the Chaotix do. And it's with that glitch that later led to the creation of Starline. So that's a fun little thing there. However, again, like I said, there are a lot of characters who have different different backstories on how they are created. So I'm just gonna go off of Tangle for just to make it easier. Tangle was concepted by Ian, while her character design was created by Tyson Hess. Obvious Tangle was created when the staff at IDW wanted like a whole new female Sonic character who was like on par with, not his speed, but merely in the sense of his fighting skills, like accompany Sonic on his adventures, basically. Supposedly there weren't any female Sonic characters that fit that sort of title. So, like a female Sonic. Not like Sonic as a girl, but like a character, like a female character who is pretty much like Sonic. Cool, cool, adventurous, always wanting to just go on the path of excitement and fun and everything. And that's what IDW wanted out of a new character, and that's where Tangle came in. She would eventually like swap between different designs, whereas Tyson Hess first designed her as a rabbit. Actually, she even had the name of Tangle the Hare beforehand. And obviously she didn't have a prehensile tail; she had prehensile ears, whereas her ears would become fists / hands, and they would be as like a separate fighting like arms for Tangle. I'm getting a little bit mixed up here. My mind's getting tangled. We have fun here. But of course, the design for Tangle would be finalized into the lemur we all know and love. So yeah, it is pretty much circumstantial when it comes to the designs of certain IDW characters. Like, certain characters are designed to fit this, certain characters are designed to fit that. It's whether the story like requires such a character. I mean, if you guys know about who Surge the Tenrec and Kitsunami the Fennec are, Ian Flynn actually wanted Surge and Kit to debut alongside Starline in issue 11. At least characters of similar vein to Surge and Kit. Like, they'd be accompanying Starline at the time of issue 11, not just Rough and Tumble. However, that would be introducing way too many characters at the time of the Neo Metal Sonic arc, and so obviously Surge and Kit would put on the back burner up until the Imposter Syndrome storyline. So yeah, when it comes to designing certain original characters, Rainboom, it's circumstantial. It really depends on if the story requires a character like that. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see here. Omega has another question. Just take a bit of sip of water real quick, and let's see. What happens if one of the former one of the former jackals from the Jackal Squad did appear in a city or village, just as an Easter egg, not as a one joke that the writers did for no reason. You see, that's the problem. The Jackal Squad is dead. I'm sorry to say that, Omega, but the Jackal Squad is dead. Like, okay, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that here just because YouTube tends to be weird with this sort of thing. But Shadow destroyed the Jackal Squad at the time of Forces. Well, episode Shadow to begin with. So, like, even if there can be Jackal characters, like there can be like characters in the background that are like of the Jackal species, but they can't be the characters from the Jackal Squad because IDW takes place after Forces, and at the time of Forces, they're dead. And I'm not sugarcoating it for anybody. Like they're gone. The only one that remains is Infinite, and even though his fate is pretty weird too. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. That's simply how it goes in the world of Sonic Land, everybody. Kitty Cat has a question though. How many characters in the IDW comics need therapy? All of them. Next question.
All of them.
Like no, like no, like no, like I'm actually not kidding. Like Bell, Tangle, Whisper, Ruff. Well, probably not Ruff, but Tumble because he lost his tail. Like he's very insecure about that. Bell, Jewel, Lanolin, Surge Kit. Like a lot of the characters need therapy. They go through they either go through things in the past or they go through things now, and it is not great either way. Like a lot of those characters like need the help. And well, Starline's gone, so can't do anything about that. Next question. Also, hello, Trigger VA and Kitty Cat. Welcome to the stream. Let's see here. Trigger, I believe you have a question. Yes, I'm confused on Rough and Tumble's story before they worked for Starline back in IDW 11. Could you share some clarity on their background? Yes, I can. Thank you, Trigger VA, for that question. So, Rough and Tumble, Skunk Brothers, bumbling idiots, so to say, I'd say. Yes. They are the lack of brains and brawn of the operation. So it merely started out with Rough and Tumble intervening during the Eggman War. They came to a community known as Barricade Town, and they drove off Eggman's forces at the time, and they were very, very hardcore mercenaries, as so they claimed. However, Rough and Tumble would tell the town that they would improve their defenses, but they lied and they took over the town for themselves, turning their supply depot into a fortress. And Barricade Town at the time of the Eggman War was the Wispin distribution hub for the Resistance. And obviously the shipments were left dry, so Knuckles went to check it out himself. However, the Egg Pawns and Death Egg Robot Mark IIs wouldn't stop coming to Barricade Town, so of course Knuckles and Sonic would take care of that. However, the town gatekeeper, Nick Hernandez, he wouldn't allow Sonic or Knuckles to come in despite them being of the Resistance. So they took matters into their own hands and tried to find out for themselves. Nick was nervous, to say the least, but he caved in and told Sonic and Knuckles everything. So, the 1994 duo went into the supply depot and found out that Rough and Tumble were causing an extortion racket. So, they took care of it themselves, with a little help by the Wisps, Sonic having to remind them that they don't need to have to work for these bad people, despite the fact that they were kind of forced to. But the Wisps all rose up thanks to Sonic's words of encouragement and their remindings of, Sonic helped save their home planet. They helped them during Lost World, helped them during Forces and everything. So best to return the favor in the best way possible by kicking Rough and Tumble's butt. Um, so, Rough and Tumble were taken into custody by the townspeople. Sonic was able to party with the rest of Barricade Town after stopping Rough and Tumble. And Knuckles even got to just to have a little bit of a break from having to go from one place to the other on behalf of him being commander of the Resistance. So what exactly happened to Rough and Tumble after that? Well, Rough and Tumble made sure that Sonic and Knuckles were on their hit list because they are sworn enemies now. They take things literally sometimes. So Rough and Tumble were sent to the jailhouse at Barricade Town. However, one fateful day prior to the events of the Battle for Angel Island, say around issue 10 and 11, they would get broken out of jail by some mysterious man, some shadowy scientist with some sort of power. He could be able to open portals, and from there, he offered Rough and Tumble the chance to work with Eggman and get revenge on Sonic. It is with that Dr. Starline, with the power of the Warp Topaz, broke Rough and Tumble out of jail, and they would be free to work with Eggman, get weapons of their own, and get revenge on Sonic. That's simply their background as of then. However, additionally, they were also hired by Starline to bring Dr. Eggman home. So, Rough and Tumble were sent to Windmill Village by Dr. Starline, and they kidnapped Mr. Tinker. Rough and Tumble took Mr. Tinker to the Mystic Ruins, and they ended up at the final egg. And then Dr. Starline would proceed to bring Eggman back. And between issue 3 to issue 11, that is the background of Rough and Tumble. There isn't really much to say about if they have really a big backstory or anything. They are pretty comedic characters. The only thing we know is that Rough is the smaller one, and Tumble is the taller one, and he lost his tail at some point, and he's very insecure about it. Again, a lot of these characters need therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a little bit about Rough and Tumble. So have fun with that. Thank you, Trigger, for the question. Let's see here. Still remember when they got introduced to Lanolin as well. Yes, Rainboom. Let's see here. Omega has another question. Does IDW and Sega are using cool fan OC characters in their comic, like 2 characters from Ghost of the Future, I forgot their names, and the new guy from Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog as well? Yeah, so IDW tends to bring a lot of cameos, whether that be from other Sega series, Mobian style characters from other franchises, or references to people working on the comic, or references to other Sonic games. As Omega stated, there are references of IDW to those too. So let me go ahead and explain what Omega was referencing. In issue 64, yeah, I know, big jump. We spent all that time around like issues 1 to 12, and now we go all the way to 64. In issue 64 at the Restoration HQ's shopping mall, there's these 2 characters, these 2 hedgehog girls. And they are cameos of Cecilia the Hedgehog and Venny the Hedgehog, which are references to Evan Stanley's old Sonic fan series, Ghost of the Future. If you guys don't know, Evan Stanley is the current head writer of the IDW Sonic comics, taking over after Ian Flynn. And again, she made her own Sonic fan series around the time of Archie, of the Archie comics. Cecily and Venny are respectively in their universe Silver's older and younger sisters. Obviously, in the canon, they aren't related to Silver, but I'd imagine that they are still sisters in this universe. And they had three appearances in that issue. So I felt like that was pretty dang cool. The fact they got to show up that much. So yeah, a version of Cecily and Venny do exist in the main Sonic canon. So, and I think that's cool. And now, as for the other character that Omega mentioned, we are talking about the main character of the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, who you all may know as Barry the Quokka, who was the main character you play as in the murder of Sonic, teaming up with Tails and Amy on the Mirage Express. That is the Avatar character. He's mostly internally known as Barry. They. Yeah, you choose pretty much like what gender the character is. Um, and Barry cameos in the Sonic the Hedgehog Winter Jam comic, which came out last month, where Barry is seen alongside the Avatar character from Forces, who most people tend to remember the Red Wolf as Gadget. Um, said in the fandom, of course, but just mainly referring to them as the Avatar from Forces. They are making a gingerbread house on reality TV, which is pretty cool. Just a fun little thing. And since the murder of Sonic takes place after Frontiers, here in IDW, we're technically seeing Barry before the events of Murder of Sonic, as well as the Mirage Express the Mirage Express conductor and his wife as well. We're seeing them before the events of the murder of Sonic. So I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, I guess with that question, we might as well just move on to my fun facts, which is IDW Sonic has a lot of cameos. A lot of cameos. So obviously I'm not going to be talking about all the cameos, but since we are talking about the ones that Omega mentioned, we might as well talk about the other cameos featured in those books. So, moving back over to Winter Jam, again, like I said, the Avatar from Forces, Barry, the Mirage Express conductor, and his wife, they're all cameoed in Winter Jam. Also cameoing in Winter Jam is Ian Jr., who a lot of people will know from a lot of Sonic media. Ian Jr. is the Forces avatar of Ian Muchler, who I believe I'm saying that his last name right. I've always said it that way. Yeah, Ian Muchler, who is the writer for the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. Basically, this one joke character that he made in Forces, and he became a sensation within the Sonic community, so much so that he is an official OC now, having shown up in IDW Sonic and Imposter Syndrome, the Sonic Symphony, Tails Tube, and yeah, here in Winter Jam. Ian Jr. is pretty much everywhere, and he's Ian Jr. is quite the blink and you'll miss him character, but he's pretty fun. Also cameoing in Winter Jam is Min the koala. At least I'm referring to him as that. If you guys don't know, the artist for Winter Jam, Minnow Kim, or as you may know him online as Digimin, he got to put his Sona character in the crowd shot that Eggman was watching TV of, like all those animal people, like in the reality TV and everything. Min got to basically put himself in the comic, which was pretty cool. It's him as the koala Sonic character from basically the koala design from Sonic Rush Adventure, akin to Garden and the Coconut Crew. Not the only time we've seen koala characters outside of the Soul Dimension, by the way. So that's pretty cool. And the last big cameo in Winter Jam is none other than Mecha Sonic Mark III. See, in Sonic Adventure, in the Final Egg, when you're playing as either Gamma or Sonic or whoever gets to go into Final Egg, you can see these healing vat tubes in the main area. You see Metal Sonic in one, but then there's this other Sonic robot that's present there as well. He looks a lot like Mecha Godzilla, of all things, at least in similar vein to the design. That is Mecha Sonic Mark III. That is the successor to Mechasonic Mark II, as we all know from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Unfortunately, Mechasonic Mark III hasn't been used at all, not even in his adventure appearance, and now we see here in Winter Jam, he was moved over from Final Egg over to Eggman's base in Winter Jam. He's just sitting in a tube. Again. I'm not salty about it, you are. I'm not sad that he's not being used often, you are.
Sure, Raider.
Oh my god.
Anyways, but yeah. That is like, yeah, those are the main Winter Jam cameos that you'll find there. I'm sure you'll find a lot of other references here in Sonic Winter Jam, because honestly, this comic kind of feels like a Sonic X episode, and I mean that in the best way possible. So if you guys do like want to look into that, go read Winter Jam. It's a whole snowball of fun. And I know I literally said I was going to do the cameos of the ones that Omega mentioned, but Misadventures also has a lot of cameos, so I think I'm going to skip those for now. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to answer one more question from the chat, and then we can move on to Leah or Angie if they have a question. Let's see. Hello, Art Sonic Fan 990. Welcome to the stream. Oh, hello. You have a question. You think Eggman will take on Clutch at some point? Ooh. Okay. As much as I'd like to see that, I have no idea what the plan is for Clutch. Like, we know that he's currently orchestrating Clean Sweep Inc. And he is, amassing all sorts of egg tech behind Eggman and such in the shadows. But the question remains, will Eggman ever find out that this is happening? I mean, Clutch has admitted that he is selling egg tech back to Eggman, so maybe it's possible. I know I've talked about it before in other like Discord servers and such, but if you think about it from a very funny standpoint, Clutch is doing Starline's whole plan that he had, but easier, and Clutch doesn't have to worry about Eggman being a bother. So I don't know if Clutch will ever come across Eggman, or if they will even fight. Oh gosh, the oldest men in the Sonic series fighting, imagine that. Clutch is crafty. Taking a break from the questions in the chat. Leah, if you have another question.
um, I'm trying. Let me. Because I was going to mention a cameo that I really love in the IDW was basically Marinette and Adrian from Miraculous. And if you guys are well aware, I kind of see it as like, even though it's just references, I consider it a bit of symbolism actually. Um, for those who don't know, who don't watch Miraculous, basically, Ladybug, Ladybug and Cat Noir's powers are yin and yang, and Ladybug is the power of creation, and the and Cat Noir's is the powers of destruction. So what I see it as is that even though it's just a reference, you know, just to them because Miraculous is popular, I kind of see it as a bit of symbolism because their cameos was during the Metal Virus arc. And if you notice, the Metal Virus, like because the creation of it, it caused all of this destruction in some very interesting in a very interesting way. So I kind of see it as a bit of symbolism there. um yeah, so that's why it's my favorite cameo. I kind of see it as a form of symbolism because we all thought, oh, the virus is not going to be that bad, but then it ended up causing all this destruction across the entirety of Sonic's world. So you can kind of see where I'm getting at, right?
I do. Yeah. So I guess we're just going to be continuing on with the cameo talk. Um, Over in the last minute arc, specifically in issue 21, at the end when Amy is telling Tails on the rescue shuttle that the Resistance HQ fell to the Zombots. There are these two background characters behind Amy in the crowd shot with all of the refugees and everything from Central City that Tails, Whisper, and Tangle were taking care of. And they are references to Adrian and Marinette from the Miraculous series, or as you may know as Cat Noir and Ladybug, respectively. And I think that's a funny thing. They were first originally drawn by Jennifer Hernandez, who did the artwork for issue 3. And the two would actually go on to make another reference, like another cameo, and that is in the 2020 annual, specifically in the first story, Big's Big Adventure, where we're seeing all of IDW Sonic's events as of the Metal Virus arc, like in replay, but we're seeing from Big's perspective now because he has pretty much been everywhere that we didn't know about. He's just been in the background of these events occurring as the comic progressed, which is pretty funny because hey, it's Big the Cat. And around the time of the events of issue 22, we see that Big was trying to look for Froggy at Resistance HQ, and he thought Amy was having everybody around for a sleepover. Oh, Big, you innocent mind. I love you. Um, However, Big's search was unsuccessful, and he left as soon as the Zombots began to um, basically just trash the HQ. However, up in the upper areas of the emergency shelter where everyone is panicking over the Zombots, you can see Adrian and Marinette sitting together and they see the commotion happening. And obviously this is before the events of in story progression, this is before issue 21 when we see them. Their appearance in Big's Big Adventure predates their appearance in issue 21, which is interesting to say the least, but it's a shame because those are the only two appearances we see of them. But I guess in good news, and to Leah as well, I guess they pretty much lived up to be Angel Island refugees, and I don't know exactly if they got infected, but let's hope they didn't when Zavok started throwing zombots at the island. I'm sorry, Leah.
Oh no, like I found it interesting. Like most people just see it as like, oh, it's just a cameo, it's a reference. It's like I see it as symbolism. Like I said, if you
Oh,
watch Miraculous, it's literally about creation and destruction. And what do we see in the metal virus arc in IDW? We see the
so much
creation
destruction.
we see the creation of the virus and how much destruction it was doing. So
Mhm.
I see it as symbolism in a way. Even though the people behind it will say, "Oh, it's just a cameo." It's like you haven't watched the show, have you? To know.
I personally see it as the fact that those characters do exist in Sonic's world. It's just like their own, like certain events obviously don't happen from their universes, but some do in their world. If Jennifer Hernandez or Ian Flynn or anyone told me that, yeah, they're cameos, but I'm sure that Ladybug and Cat Noir do exist in Sonic's world, I'd believe them. I would. Like, and plus, it's ironic considering the fact that Adrian and Marinette in in the IDW comics, they're already their namesake animals. Adrian is a cat in the IDW comics, and Marinette is a ladybug. So I just find that yeah, it is symbolism in a way, and it's like it's just fun. It's just funny. It's fun. It's funny. Yeah.
Oh,
Uh.
I was
Uh.
not expecting it. Like I remember the first screenshot of it when that issue came out.
Oh
Miraculous
gosh.
fans went crazy. They're just like,
No, I
"Oh
wasn't
my."
around for I actually wasn't around for that time. Like, yeah, I wasn't around in the fandom during that time. If anything, I pretty much like started like my whole big trend of like doing more with Sonic and like the lore and everything when the 2022 annual came out. That was when I started to prominently read the comics. Yeah, 2022 annual and the free comic book day story. So
Mhm.
yeah, I wasn't exactly around, but I did know that the IDW comics existed. I just wasn't heavily invested in them as I was now.
Mm,
Mm,
I get you.
Let's see here. Angie, do you have your question yet?
N- No.
Not yet? Hey, take your time. It's totally fine. If you want, you can continue crafting it, and I can ask towards the end of the show if you wanted to ask, if that's okay. You say so. Right. Let's head back over to the chat and see what else people have asked. See, they were mercenaries. Now you're speaking my language. Yeah, pretty much Rough and Tumble are mercenaries. Again, yeah. They worked with Starline, they worked with Eggman, they're working with Clutch. They're just yeah, they're in it for whatever prize they can get their grubby hands on. Hmm. See, Omega has another question. Does Starline know about the start of the Resistance and the Eggman War? Starts the end of the war and know Eggman's enemies, their weaknesses, and all the location of the Doctor and the secret Egg HQ. Okay, I'd imagine, considering how much of a fanboy Starline was at the time, I'd assume that he did know about how things happened with the Eggman War, Eggman Empire Fortress, Metropolis, everything. I'd assume as such. After all, at the time, he was he was very, very boastful towards Eggman. And again, he'd as evident in issue 14, he'd go out of his way to amass egg tech just so he could, save it as memorabilia. At least at the time, he amassed it for memorabilia. Obviously, after he was fired, he would use that amassed egg tech from the Frozen Peak Egg 14 base to use in his repository during Bad Guys. But yeah, considering how much Starline knew and was even at Eggman's side, I am very confident he knew about what went down between the Resistance and the Eggman Empire and the Eggman Army as well. I hope that answers your question. See here. Even writers use some concept artwork from characters to make them into brand new characters and background characters as Easter egg. Yeah. Okay. I'm really glad Omega brought that up because that's something I actually want to delve into. If you guys don't know, in IDW Sonic, concept art or glitched models of characters would somehow like end up in the IDW comics as like their own characters. For example, um, in issue no, sorry, yeah, in issue 29, towards the like at the very end of the climax of the Metal Virus, when everyone is being cured by Supersonic and Super Silver, we see Vanilla help. We see Vanilla being helped up by Elder Scruffy, amongst the face ship ruins, and next to Elder Scruffy is this one cat character, and apparently it's a character that derives from Blaze's concept art. Um, Drawn at least from what I have heard, the character next to them, it's this uh dark bluish tealish cat girl, and they derive from Blaze's concept art. It was yeah, penciled from Adam Bryce Thomas, who did the artwork for issue 29. The line art for issue 29, and I did not know that at first, but I think that's pretty cool. Um, Other characters include that of, say, Big the Cat, even. In Sonic Adventure, there's this weird glitch where Big becomes pink. Supposedly it's like this weird, like, little glitch where Big becomes pink or something, and um, they decided to go with that as like a character design. So in issue 48, with the Chaotix hanging around at downtown Central City, finding out what went down with the traffic and the lights, and everything was in disarray. Amongst the crowd shot at downtown, there's this big cat fella who's pink and he's wearing a vest and he looks awfully like Big. But turns out it's just a character that derives from Big's adventure glitch. And that same pink character shows up in issue 64 in the second story. In issue 64 of Misadventures, they show up right at the end when Silver and Blaze are about to go off to Soliana for the first time. And then one more example that I do want to bring up is... Oh, yes. It actually does come from Winter Jam. When Eggman is watching reality TV and like investing himself into the winter shows and everything, there's two characters that show up on the screens, and it was confirmed by Minnow Kim, the line artist for the comic, that they are the prototype designs of the Conductor and Barry. The Conductor used to be some sort of dog-looking character, and Barry used to be a deer almost. It's just that Minnow Kim decided to like update their designs and their colors to try to make them like original characters. So yeah, like a lot of like prototype designs are like refitted into different characters, and it's like it's a really cool way of like repurposing old ideas and such. I know that there's like, especially during the events of Battle for the Empire, where there are a lot of badniks that were scrapped from like the early days of Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but they come back in this comic. They come back in these comics, like the scrapped Bantber and the scrapped Gator badniks, and heck, even the Splats, as we know, was a scrapped character for Sonic 1, but then it came back in Mania. So it's like, a lot of designs are often brought back from the dead grave of concept art. So, thanks, Omega, for mentioning that. Don't think I would have been able to actually mention that before, so that's cool. Let's see here. Anything else? Oh yeah, Rainboom was saying, now that you mention it, I really think I see both Marinette and Adrian in the Metal Virus arc, because they both look alike. Yeah, Rainboom knows, Leah.
I just remember like when that was first unveiled, like someone like a Miraculous fan screenshot it because I'm presuming they're a Sonic fan as well, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, they made a cameo in the Sonic IDW comics." I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" And then I used to buy the physical copies, so and I looked it up. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's true." And yeah, for those who don't know, I'm a huge Miraculous fan. So seeing their cameos in the IDW comics, I was just like, oh my gosh.
Also, by the way, I'm not gonna totally shill or anything. I'm totally not promoting or anything, but you guys should go check out the Lucky Charm podcast that Leah hosts. Not only does we do my Sonic Lore podcast, but Leah over here does the Lucky Charm podcast, always dedicated to the Miraculous series. So I think you guys should go check. You guys should go check that out if you guys are interested in Miraculous.
Yeah. I actually do it with Gee, aka the cartoon hotspot. She is a huge Miraculous fan, so she's also a content creator. So yeah, I do the Lucky Charm podcast with her and we talk about Miraculous. So be sure to check those out.
Mm-hmm. And again, congruent live streams. Don't you worry, folks. Sonic Lore with Radar isn't going anywhere. We still have one more planned episode, but we'll get to that at the end. We will. Let's continue on with the questions, shall we? Yes, I do believe so. All right, let's see here. Okay, Omega has another question. Does Clutch will make a deal with the Deadly Six? Zavok will probably go after him when the Pain go in run. When the Pain go in ruin. The Deadly Six. Oh gosh.
Hmm.
Okay. I don't know about that one, Omega. Mostly because the Deadly Six are back on Lost Hex. They're back home. And, well, it's ambiguous over the fact if they're ever going to show up again in IDW Sonic since they vowed their revenge on the world below. But if they ever were to deal with anybody else, I want to doubt that, considering their, past mistakes with Eggman and Starline, but I don't know. It depends on if Clutch is really good at persuasion with them. It really depends. Especially since, thanks to Ian Flynn, the Deadly Six are actual adversaries and not just complete jokes. Like, they are actual threats. So, yeah, that would depend, really.
Mm.
Let's see here. A lot of Sonic Miraculous. I know. And I would like to see Adrian and Marinette show up again in the crowd shots. Especially since I know like a lot of the I know that a lot of the artists tend to bring back a background characters and like put them in, well, yeah, it's basically to help make the world of IDW Sonic feel more alive and such. You know, different background characters from past issues come back. Some of them are even named. It's pretty cool. I'd like to see that happen. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Omega has something else to say. Some fans want to see Sonic Comics dark, and IDW Sonic is great at that too. Archie, no, because they like to. Hold on a second. Archie, no, because we don't do dark stuff. But that's how we get IDW Sonic. We get some dark moments in Sonic Comics. Yeah, the dark moments in. Yeah, the dark moments in IDW Sonic. Well, actually, obviously we know that the Metal Virus is one of the darkest Sonic stories as of recently, as far as we know in terms of us in the community. However, it should be stated that Metal Virus is actually originally going to be an Archie story. If you guys don't know, it was confirmed by Ian that if Archie would have made it to issue 300, Ian would have started the Metal Virus during the Archie comics, whereas the Metal Virus would have been the reboot replacement for roboticization. However, obviously that didn't go as planned, and now Metal Virus is a story connected to the actual Sonic canon,
Mm.
which is an interesting turn of fate for stories like this. And obviously, like at the end of Archie, there was a whole thing when it came to Neo Metal Sonic returning and some things with him and Breezy the Hedgehog. And supposedly that would have led to some things, say a takeover of Angel Island, even. But I digress. We probably won't exactly know unless Ian's Lost Hedgehog tales are to come out. If you guys don't know, well, no, excuse me. Lost Hedgehog Tales is mainly for the pre-reboot stuff, so. Oh well, whatever unearths from the archives, that's all we know. But, yeah, really depends on what happens with Sega of Japan or the comics at IDW. Will we ever get a darker story like Metal Virus again? That's up to them to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Will Mimic try to make Whisper kill Tangle by pretending to be her? Oh my goodness. Art Sonic Fan 990, excuse me. Will Mimic try to make Whisper kill Tangle by pretending to be her? Well, first of all, Mimic has already disguised himself as Duo at the restoration, so I highly kind of doubt that if plans were to change. And second of all, have Whisper kill Tangle by Mimic pretending to be her. I see that's actually a pretty interesting thing and also a bad thing. Cuz the game characters are not allowed to die or anything. It's been stated in any of the external media of Sonic that the characters that come originally from the games aren't allowed to die. They can't die, or And of course, with Sonic, he can't lose a battle between him and Eggman. That's part of such rule sets, dare I say, mandates that Sega has been put on ever since Archie rebooted and such. We all know the reason why. However, the comics characters are a bit more flexible in that region. As we all know, Dr. Starline had an unceremonious end due to crashing debris of the Egg Imperial City. So the possibility of other comic characters dying isn't off the table. But I'm not too sure about if that is to be the case. We're still going to have to look into like what exactly Mimic is supposed to do with Surge and Kit at their time of the restoration under Clutch. So, a double-edged sword answer to a double-edged sword question. Yeah, pretty much. It is like that, and I wish I had something more concrete to say, but that's all I really have to say on the matter. But yeah. There you have it. Let's see. I am surprised that IDW Comics didn't use the Spider Lady from the concept art from Sonic Adventure DX as a new character. Oh, okay. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Okay. So, okay. Yeah. So, Omega, you mentioned something really good there. The Spider Lady, the Spider Girl from Sonic Adventure. If you guys don't know, in Sonic Adventure at Speed Highway, there are a bunch of posters scattered about the level, and one of them features an old concepted character, originally a 3D model, but then was put onto put on like a 2D poster. Her name was basically just Spider Girl, and she was created. She was originally going to appear in the Sonic series, but yeah. Um yeah, however, as of recently, her original artist showed the original concept art of her that was created at the time of Sonic Adventure's conception. However, before that, Spider-Girl did make an appearance in the classic IDW comics. Since this is IDW, we can talk about the classic comics and, again, all sorts of other. If it's in relation to the comics, then obviously I will bring it up. Yeah, so Spider-Girl does make a cameo appearance in IDW. It is in Sonic Learns to Drive, the story by the Mech Elroys, in which Sonic is learning how to drive, and when Sonic overhears that the road rally that he's specifically trying to get a driver's license for is about to start as soon as possible, he tries to take a loop-de-loop detour, and on the side of the loop-de-loop is the same poster from Adventure of Spider-Girl. However, yes, I do agree. The fact that they have that the IDW comics haven't used that concept art to make a new character out of her. There's already a whole bunch of characters in modern Sonic as it is. I don't think they would want to overbloat the cast, and if anything, I would actually like it as to say that Spider-Girl would make an appearance in Classic, just to put her in something, not as a poster at least, because we have her official design, we have sort of her coloring, so I guess that's just me though, thinking of a way to like bring her into that. So, oh well, I don't know, maybe, who knows. Um the future is very very interesting when it comes to Sonic characters. Right. I will now be taking a quick break from the chat room and seeing if Leah has another question for me.
Ooh, yes, I do. Actually, it's about I don't know if they ever explained why did Mimic betray his comrades, the Diamond Cutters. You know, I'm very
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know if they actually explained the reasoning for Mimic to betray his comrades.
Mm-hmm. Right. So as I'm sure a lot of you know from reading the comics, the Diamond Cutters aren't just a rapid response team under the guise of the Restoration in order to help um uh 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 excuse me to help keep threats away from their rebuilding efforts and everything. The Diamond Cutters were originally an anti-Eggman mercenary group that Whisper used to be a part of, basically the first generation of the Diamond Cutters, which included Mimic the Octopus, Slinger the Ocelot, Smithy the Lion, and Clairvoyance. As we all know, which led up to the bitter rivalry between Whisper and Mimic. Um, Mimic would go on to betray his team around the time of Sonic Forces. When Sonic was officially put into the Death Egg, he was, tortured for months, according to Knuckles. With Sonic gone, the Diamond Cutters would be able to try to stop Eggman during this new upcoming rise to power for the Eggman Empire, supposedly even able to take over the world. Oh my gosh. And it is with this that Mimic intentionally set up a plan with Eggman in order to trap Slinger, Smithy, and Claire in a capsule chamber full of shadow androids, and they would be taken out one by one. And Mimic, and in answer to your question, Leah, Mimic has stated that he would rather stay on the winning team, in which he estimated the fact that the Eggman Empire would take over 99% of the world in reference to forces. And it was simply that. Mimic just accepted the fact that he wasn't going to go behind Eggman if he was going to be taking over the world that easily with Sonic gone. And as we all know, Gun has been put in its place by the Eggman Empire. So obviously, Eggman's takeover has been made easier without anyone standing in opposition to him, except for the little resistance that's starting up by Sonic's friends. And yeah, it is because of the fact that the Eggman Empire was winning the war at the time. Mimic changed sides, and he'd go on to simply be free of having to, well, do whatever he did at the time. He didn't have his Wisp, he didn't have his friends, or so he called them his friends, and he didn't have to worry about Whisper because there was nothing to worry about an unarmed coward, so he said. Mimic turned in quote unquote evidence to Eggman, and he was on his merry way. The Eggman Empire just took over the world from there, and the events of Forces progressed as they did. A tragic tale, but that's how the cookie crumbles, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it looks
I wish
like
I could. I wish it could be a lighter note, though. Again, Whisper would have Tangle with her, and they would be able to. They would be able to avenge the team. However, obviously, with recent events, that didn't exactly last as long.
Mm-hmm. I still found it interesting because if my memory, I think I'm trying to remember. I think wasn't it? I forgot who it was from the others. They actually told Whisper to stay outside, which I thought was a very smart move. I would say, because
Yeah, that was merely on the team side. I don't think that was what Mimic wanted to, but to be fair, Whisper was just a scout for the first generation of the Diamond Cutters at the time, so and um yeah. I don't think Mimic would have wanted her to stay outside and again with his plan or anything, but oh well, he made do with the decisions that were made.
because wasn't it if I remember, wasn't it like I think wasn't it one of them had like suspicions or something? That's why they
Yeah,
had that's why they had Whisper like
yeah.
stay outside or something.
That was clairvoyance. Because the green howler monkey, she she was the team's psychic op. She, she had psychokinesis and everything. Not excuse me, not in the sense of like Silver. She had um extrasensory perception. She had ESP,
Mm.
which, she was able to, sense other targets from distances and, precognition and everything. Like she got a bad feeling because Mimic had an underlying plan, but yeah, she brushed it off just because, they wanted to take this chance, but obviously it backfired on them. And yeah, Claire knew that there was a bad feeling about this, and that's why she had asked at least that um Whisper to stay outside, and
Mm.
there was at least some good that came out of that.
Yeah, because if it was a trap, then Whisper would have been, as we all know, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I would say that was a smart move because it's like, oh, he didn't like Whisper was the only one out of the ones out of the first
Mhm.
generation of the diamond cutters to still and then like, oh. So I would say even though it was very tragic, but at the same time, like at least clairvoyance was she had a bad feeling, and she's like, okay, one of us needs to stay outside because I already have a bad feeling about this. And usually your gut feeling is right, you know?
Mhm. Right. Let's see here. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Leah.
Hmm.
Right. Let's see about any other questions about that. So, oh, yeah, Omega's mentioning the fact that Silver and Adrian's voice actor, they share the same voice actor. Bryce Papenbrook. Yeah. Let's see here. Like fans should give a good point since the metal virus and Zombots are a good unused idea from an Archie comic plan. Yeah, pretty much. Let's see. Oh, Kitty Cat has a question. In your opinion, do you think Clutch is lying or telling the truth about knowing Surgeon Kit's past?
Ooh, that's a great
Okay, that is a good one. And our first question on the most, one of the recent IDW issues that came out. So, um, I don't know, but I'm personally leaning on the fact that Clutch is telling the truth. Clutch has been around for a long, long time. Guy is of retirement age and he's doing all of this without having to break so many sweats. Um, Clutch has seen the ins and outs of the world as, generations of heroes and villains come and go. And um, I personally think that it's more or less the fact that he does have some knowledge. Um, but but it's me guessing on that part in the sense that Clutch has he's seen these kinds of things before. He would know how these kinds of things work. In terms of actual canonical evidence, it is merely the fact that Starline is one of Clutch's clients for Egg Tech. That that is merely why it makes sense. Um it makes sense as to why Starline was at White Park's Grand Chateau and Shadow swiped that business card from his coat during from their small fight at the park. Starline was meeting with Clutch to begin with. He didn't plan for Rouge, Amy, and Cream showing up, but he did take advantage of that, as we know. And as Clutch mentioned in issue 67, that Starline was like a prominent client of him, for the egg tech and the resources that Starline would have obtained for his plan, for Operation Remaster and to cybernetically upgrade Surgeon Kit. However, he had just gotten the resources for Starling Base Sigma, he had gotten Tails' fur and everything. So yeah, obviously he needed one more thing, and as we all know, that led to him kidnapping Belle in Zeddy Hunt. But going back to Clutch, Surge, and Kit, I do think that it's possible that Starline did mention some things to Clutch, or maybe it was pretty much just a tight knit, um, yeah, pretty much just a tight knit trade off between Starline and Clutch. It's interesting because the two had never interacted before, but at least not as we've seen in the book. But now looking back at it, it seems that they have interacted a couple of times. I was talking about this with some other people before, so yeah, and it does also provide insight on Starline getting the resources he needed for searching Kit at the time, and as well as you know the badniks for the base and the test session course and all of that. So it really depends on how much Starline had told Clutch during their the meeting, like a little. Excuse me. It really depends on how much Starline told Clutch when they were making their business and everything. So, like, I just have a slight feeling that Clutch is telling the truth. It just depends on how much Starline had told him about what he plans to do with the egg tech. Or it was probably just a backhanded shady deal and Starline didn't say a word. We don't know, but it seems clear that Clutch knows why Starline went to him for egg tech and other resources. Question is, just how much does he know? And does he really know Surgeon Kit? So it's really a matter of the fact of how much context does Clutch have if Starline told him anything. I probably would have been able to condense that, but whatever. Let's see here. Any other questions? What happened if Whisper upgraded her mask to see and find mimic in disguise and anyone he can't fool her? That would be cool if her mask was able to do all that. The problem was Smithy created all of their masks, for the first generation diamond cutters. And aside from the fact that Whisper like fine tunes the variable Wispin, I'm not too sure if she like makes personal upgrades to her mask. If anything, she would either go to Belle or Tails for that matter. So, I mean, Whisper already goes to Belle in order to, make sure her Wispin's still working after the events of, her fight between Surge at Central City, but it it depends on what she prefers. It's Whisper we're talking about.
It's so interesting the audience is asking like what ifs.
Pretty much what ifs. I feel like Ian Flynn right now. This is our Bumblecast.
It's like, what if this happened? I'm like, oh, this is a lot of what ifs, and I love it.
Oh, yeah, this is really like the Bumblecast. By the way, if you guys, by the way, a lot of the information I have here on my document is thanks to the Bumblecast. So please, go support Ian Flynn himself and the Bumble co-host Kyle Kraus. Uh, they aside from the Sonic questions they get about the canon and lore and everything, they are pretty funny videos. Like you'll find like the most absurd things you would ask when it comes to Sonic characters, or like heck, even Mega Man, or the likes of Ian's original works like Drogoon, or Claus McGee even. I'm totally not shilling for Ian Flynn, but like, what the heck? So like, go check out the Bumblecast. Maybe you'll even get an answer from him on one of your own questions. Oh, Omega does have another question here. Do you think that Clutch? Huh. Sounds similar to Crazy Cat's question. Hold on, let me see. You think Clutch is lying to Surgeon Kid about their normal life when they used to be just to keep them around? Okay, it's a different question in the sense. Lying to keep, not in the sense, yeah. So, okay, it's sort of a different question, just in similar vein. Where Kitty Cat asked if Clutch is lying or telling the truth to Surgeon Kit, Omega is asking if Clutch is just lying to Surgeon Kit to keep them around. I don't know, because Clutch didn't exactly know Surge and Kit were still hanging around Starline Base Sigma. After all, that's why he had the Burrowbots, the Grounders, and the Eggman Enterprises excavators out there, like tearing up a bunch of the other buildings and everything. They were, trying to amass what Egg Tech was left about so Clutch could take advantage of it. Um, as far as I am aware, Clutch had no idea Surge and Kit were still hanging around there, so it was pretty much free game. After all, any kind of resources or land Clean Sweep Inc. can take advantage of, that's a risk he's willing to take. So I don't. But in terms of Clutch lying just to have them around, I don't know. That's also like connected to the answer I gave Cutie Cat, where it really depends on what context he has of Surgeon Kit. So I hope that answers your questions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
Like Clutch is an interesting character because I remember one of my previous like fun live streams, like Kelp actually gave his reasoning that Clutch is actually a realistic like character, like a character working in the shadows, you know? And
mhm.
and I think that's like the best way to word Clutch, for sure. Like he's like a shady character of all things, like where it's like yeah, he does a lot of shady dealings, and that's very realistic in real life. It's not like he has any power levels and or anything like that, like the other characters, but him, it's like he just works in the shadows and has people working for him, so like so it's like Clutch is an interesting character, and I am very curious to know what they're going to do with his character.
If anything, obviously, I'm gonna give a big shout out to Mr. Diet Dr. Kelp when he put it best when he said that um, Clutch pretty much feels like Marvel's Kingpin to Sonic in that
Hmm.
sense. Especially when Clean Sweep Inc. is a very similar it's a very similar concept to damage control, also from Marvel. So
Mm.
I just feel like that's a pretty cool like aspect we're looking into Sonic. He's not a super villain, but he is like but he's a villain like in the shadows and everything, and I feel like that's a really cool aspect we see of Sonic's world. Like we don't we don't see like any mafia-esque type characters a lot in this series or anything like that. So I feel like Clutch being somewhat of similar, something similar to that. I just think that's like really cool. It's why I'm actually interested is like I'm really invested into seeing how this all works out for Clean Sweep Inc. in the end. Like how the arc will end, if if they are to um successfully take over the restoration or not. Even though it's looking like not, considering some recent Tales Tube episodes, but still, very interested to see how it plays out.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Like it's like you said, it's very rare to have characters like that, and the fact that IDW made a bold move like that, it really gives the characters some realism, because as we all
Mm.
know, there is a bit of shady stuff going on in the shot
Mhm.
real in the real world, as we all know. So like having a character represent that, like basically, like you said, it kind of almost feels like a, a mob, right? Like isn't
Mhm.
it kind of like a mobster, I guess you could say, but he also works in the shadows and stuff, and it's like this is like it's a very bold move, because I don't know if there's any other character I could think of that is like Clutch, someone that just works in the shadows, and just does a lot of shady activity, so
Exactly. Right. I don't think there are any other questions in the chat room. So, Leah, do you have one another question to ask for?
Let me see. Do. Oh, right. I think what I found interesting is um if I'm okay, if I'm remembering this correctly, um isn't the I forgot what issue it was. Isn't it like what was it? Amy is befriending Surge and Kit, or am I remembering that
That
wrong?
is 67, yes.
Okay.
That
Like
is, their first day at Restoration HQ saying how, oh, Surgeon Kit simply just want to make up and, join the Restoration uh, get some new footing.
okay. Because like it's so funny because the like I kind of like the reference of like Whisper giving her the like glare. I was just like, oh, I remember why she's mad. Like
Hmm.
like that part, I was like, oh yeah, I can see why Whisper's mad.
Hmm.
Oh,
Uh, Sorry, I don't think I caught like the actual like question of
like
that.
I'm trying to like I'm not sure if Amy like I don't know if Sonic clued her in about Surgeon Kit's, actions or anything
Mm,
because I know Amy, Amy's the type of character who tries to see the good in everyone, so like I'm not sure if she's fully aware, of the previous events, especially with like Surge absorbing the wisp, with Whisper.
no, yeah. Okay, I can answer you on that one though. I can. Because literally at the time of literally at like yeah, at that moment when Sonic first saw Surgeon Kit hanging out with Amy, he literally asked if she knows who these two are, and Amy does. um like obviously like through the restoration she'd obviously heard of like things that went down with Whisper at Central City because Tangle knows. um Tangle definitely knows a bit about it and such, but Tangle doesn't exactly know how bad it was for Whisper. She just know that it was bad. However, Amy is aware of things either from Sonic or from Tails or anyone, or even Bell, even just anyone involved with Surge and Kit during Imperial City or at Central City or at Starline Base Sigma. Really, anything. Um, but Amy is aware of Surge and Kit. However, she isn't exactly aware of the things they have done outside of when it comes to Sonic and stuff. Like she definitely doesn't know that Surge and Kit were the ones who caused the fire at Forest Ridge, especially since Amy was there. And
Mhm.
I know the fact that Belle knows like cuz yeah, Ash, the little bear cub who is the son of the park ranger at Forest Ridge. He mentioned how a girl with spiky hair shooting lightning and a kid that was about his age uh and they were the ones that started the fire, and Belle remembered seeing silhouettes of them in Forest Ridge when she got knocked out by Motobud. However, I don't think Belle has actually put two and two together that they're the same person, that they're here at Restoration HQ and they caused the fire. Um and I'm not sure if that's ever going to get brought up. That's actually a really good thing and something I have like talked about before. But oh well, I guess we'll just have to see.
Mhm.
Now, unfortunately, it has occurred to me that we are coming up towards the end of the stream. However, I did want to give like one last little ask to Angie if she is. Oh,
Oh.
oh, that. Oh, well, that's. Oof. It seems that Angie had to be right back. Oh, oh, what a shame. Oof, and I was oof. Well then, hoping she gets back in time. I'm not really. Let me see here. Omega said something real quick. Let me just look into the chat here. Amy told them the restoration and team aren't forcing them to join. They have a choice. Surge takes Amy's roads and that. Probably Surge and Kit try to stay in being good. They could possibly go good, but they can also stick to being with Mimic and Clean Sweep Inc. It's circumstantial as to how things are going to go. So I don't really have a doubt um of like what may happen when it comes to Surgeon Kit, but um we'll we'll just have to see. Again, we do have the main series on hold as of right now, because we are going to be getting the Fang the Hunter miniseries coming out for the next 4 months, starting with this month. And then the main series will be back in May with issue 69. So, um, yeah, it really depends on what kind of stories we're gonna get out of it at the end. So let's just hope for the better or the worst. Really, who knows? Anything could happen to the restoration now with Clean Sweep Inc. involved. Doesn't look like Angie has come back, and I was hoping to have answered her question if she had it on her. And we are unfortunately running out of time. Leah, what do you think?
I would say we can end it.
Hmm.
I don't.
Alrighty then. I suppose so. I'll just have to come back to Angie on her question then.
Okay. All right. Unfortunately, we will have to end this live stream. It was great to know more about the IDW, and you guys asked a lot of great what if questions.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of great what if questions. Um, but yeah, stay tuned. I am still in the works with Kevin, Corin, and Sydney on a new live stream series. We're still in the talks for that, so be on the lookout for that. And be on the lookout for the next episode of the Lucky Charm podcast that Radar had mentioned. Other than Sonic Lore with Radar, I do the Lucky Charm podcast with the amazing The Cartoon Hotspot. Um, we do have a date in mind, but we're still working out the date and time for the Lucky Charm podcast. And of course, you may never know who I might end up doing another Q&A. It's been a while since I did a Q&A. The last one I did was with True Blue, so that was really fun. So yeah, stay tuned for those upcoming announcements and stay tuned for more upcoming song covers. Wink, wink.
Mm-hmm.
The song covers are so much fun. But may you all have a wonderful night. This is Leah Serenity Rose. And of course, I want to give huge shout out to Chris here for streaming, for my YouTube channel. Of course, my co-host Angie, and of course, the amazing Radar.
Please, thank you everyone for those who have been watching the live stream series, and do stay tuned as our next episode will be episode 5, where we'll be talking about Sonic Prime. And as
Woohoo!
fate would have it, by the time the next episode streams, the series will be over, which is baffling to say the least. But hey, things tend to happen in the world of Sonic. I guess we're just gonna have to see what happens with the Paradox Prism. But apart from that, this was Radar the Main Wolf, and I bid you all adieu.
Bye, everybody.